Welcome in to the Grueling Truths NASCAR show. We appreciate you guys tuning in this week. A little bit behind schedule compared to normal, but you know what? Like a woman that you're always chasing for, that's what this show is. You need to try to find us a little bit because that's the keeper. You don't want the easy one to find because she's not going to stay around long. That being said, and if you're still tuning in, I'm with my two colleagues today.
I want to hang up after that comment.
Number one is Steve Risley. Sir, the IU basketball schedule was released, and boy, it's a little tough looking this non-conference.
That's how you build championships right there, baby.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And joining us on the far right side there is Joe. He's got a bad case of monkey Rona, but he has decided to try to do it the best that he can. We just need him to put the one lug nut on to keep this show together. Joe, how you feeling?
Fucking right on. Let's do it. It's great.
Right on, baby. He must have been listening to Bubba Wallace's scanner before he turned on. So
I was.
But we do appreciate you tuning in. Again, normally we're on
Ryan,
Wednesday, but
just don't talk to me the rest of the show.
That's easy. We could have done this show 2 days ago if that was the case. But before we get started, the Grueling Truth is powered by betting.net. Betting.net is your best bet to find an online sportsbook or casino that's right for you. Steve, well, this is all you, bud. The Ally 400 was this past Sunday, and somebody who is donning his shirt got the victory. Steve?
Oh, we're talking about Chase?
I figured we would let you have the floor as he found his way to the checkered stripe
obviously
with the
it worked out in my favor. That was his 15th win on 12 different tracks. He's all of a sudden now he's kind of been labeled a road course king, and now all of a sudden he's a concrete king. This is his second win this year, both on concrete. And this is if you historically follow Chase like I did, perhaps since he came into the league. He's a second half of the season driver. He generally, if you ever watch him, he does not perform that exceptional. But I think him and Gustav, whatever you call him,
Goofed up son,
yeah. They get their crap together right about this time, 10 to 12 races for the playoffs, to start dialing it in. And he definitely has potential to become the first back-to-back winner we've had this season. But anyway, the race itself, he didn't dominate the race. Really got a pit problem again, put him all the way back at the end. The smart part was he came in and was able to go ahead and utilize some that stuck of being stuck back there and made some major adjustments to the car. Knew he was already in last place, so he wasn't going to give up any more track position. Stayed on the same lap, got the car adjusted, and just flew through the field almost instantly once he made those adjustments. And we'll talk about it, the race strategy. The race really boiled down to one key moment, and that's with 9 laps to go when the one car would lose a tire, blow an engine, which when both those happened.
We blew the engine for the first caution, and then Chris Buescher's tire fell off.
So, but that was the game changer, and I don't understand the decision. And let's talk about that decision here in this race, because I think that was a turning point in the race when Chase stayed out, and usually the lead car is the one that gets burned. It's usually everybody does whatever the lead car doesn't do, figuring with 9 laps to go, the lead car is generally the dominant car. So if he goes in, we're all staying out. If he stays out, we're all going in and getting fresh rubber. Well, fortunately, there was enough of a buffer of people that stayed out with him, but they were not contenders. The contenders all came in and put themselves 10 to 12 cars away from Elliott with only 5 laps to go. And that's what amazed me. There was no counting done about, okay, when we go back to green, how many laps are going to be left? This is a mile and a third track. This is not like we're doing this at Road America this week on a 4-mile track or at Talladega or Daytona, which are, time to catch them. This is a short track to begin with pretty much. And it paid off well for one time. Allen made a great call to keep his car out, and that's something historically Chase has not done. He's generally been wanting to come in like that and put the fresh rubber on his car so He pulled off the win, but I thought the race itself, guys, and I'm going to shut up here after this. Thank you for the ability to laud my driver. I thought it was a great race, personally. I thought top to bottom, there was a lot of competitiveness in the race. These cars held up well. The tacky stuff came in, did its job up early. It was a long delayed race, obviously, but once we got it in, the racing we got to see was damn good racing. Go ahead now. I'm done talking. Thank you for giving me the floor.
No problem, Steve. That actually was going to be the question. I was going to ask you if you could put your bias aside if you thought it was a good race, and you answered that question. So I appreciate it.
I would have thought
So
it was a
now,
good race had Elliott won or not. Yeah. It
I
was just a
agree.
good race. Yeah.
Joe, I'll give you the same question. Was Nashville, the Ally 400, a good race?
I thought it was an incredible race. I still haven't really gotten over the fact that we had a Sunday race at 5 o'clock with storms moving in that postponed the race. But all in all, even with the weather delays and having to stay up late, I thought it was an incredibly good race. A 1.3 mile track, we're seeing 5 wide at the end of the race. I think that's incredible. So I don't have any complaints with that track. I can't wait till they go back there. I thoroughly enjoyed the race.
I agree. I thought the race was, really phenomenal. There was comers and goers. You could tell some cars were short run cars, some cars were long run cars. But the thing that impressed me the most is, Steve, you mentioned that they put some tire down with the tire dragon, but after it rained, it didn't matter. Those grooves still stayed there.
They did.
So, we got to see guys run high. We got to see guys run low. And even my driver says that he's bitching about clean air from the guy up front, but he's the same guy that gained 25 positions starting in the back to move up to that point. So, I thought it was a good race. I think whenever you do get the lead in these cars, that's kind of where you want to be. But you can do multiple grooves, and as long as you're willing to outrun a short run or long run car, I mean, we've seen some great racing on, mile and a halves and especially concrete races. So I just want to go ahead and give you the top 5. It was Chase, obviously winning the race, Kurt Busch, Ryan Blaney, Kyle Larson, and Ross Chastain. You mentioned, Steve, that this race it really changed. Like, this top 5 is not indicative of how this race was won. It was all Toyota on everything until the final 5 laps. Joe, I'll let you have the floor on this one. How bad does Toyota have to feel after absolutely dominating this race? And then with drivers like Kyle Busch and Martin Truex finishing 21 and 22, and even Bubba Wallace, who had the fastest car in practice, finishing outside the top 10.
Well, yeah, Bubba Wallace had the fastest car in practice, but he didn't qualify very well. But yeah, Toyota, and actually, I'm going to drive home the point more toward Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch had the best car during the race. I mean, hands down, best car out there. I thought he had the fastest car. I thought he ran the best race. And I think it was a bonehead decision what happened that caused Toyota not to win this week. So, as a collective whole, Toyota, I think that they need to reevaluate maybe their strategy toward the end of races to make sure that they're in contention, because they proverbially shot themselves in the foot this week. There was no reason for the finishes that they had.
Yeah, two points, Joe, to parry what you said. Yeah, Bubba's car may be the fastest car, but Bubba's car had one problem. Bubba was driving.
Bubba was driving.
Bubba was the problem with that car, because that car was lickety split quick. And the other one is it's amazing to me to see all the Gibbs boys just basically they got outsmarted by Gustafson. I mean, I thought Joe and Ryan addressed this. I thought the rule of thumb is track position is more important than tires on a short track. You don't ever want to give up track position on a short track if you've got it. And they all gave up competitive short or track position. They had wonderfully great tires, but they were marred so much into that 5 wide racing that was going on that they couldn't get past it and get to Elliott. And Kurt Busch made a great run at him, but
I mean, you got to give a shout out. You got to give a shout out to Kurt Busch, though. I mean,
Oh, I know. I
again,
love Kurt Busch.
yeah, again, another top 5 finish. I think Kurt Busch is actually putting together a very good season as of late.
I think Jordan loves Kurt Busch too.
Yeah,
and he was there. And I would echo that, Steve. You know, we already saw what happens on restarts for guys that did stay out, and they would only lose maybe 2 to 3 spots at worst on a 20-lap run. It wasn't something to where, you know, guys were just getting absolutely smoked like they were missing a gear, which you do see at some tracks, but this was not the case. And I think what's most disappointing is the way that Sonoma finished for Toyota. I mean, nobody for JGR finished up 20th. Then you have a race where you come back, dominate. You know, Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex, 1-2, first stage, 1-2, second stage. Joe mentioned Kyle Busch had the best car. I would say he had the best short-run car. I thought Chase Elliott's car was a better long-run car. But at the end of the day, he had a top 2 car. I think that's easily able to be said. And nowhere to be found based purely on the fact that you're giving up at the very minimum 10 spots with 4 laps to go. You know, and we'll kind of get to this later, but I talked to Kyle a little bit about that decision, and we'll find out what M&M stands for and what Tennessee Titans stand for. So go ahead.
I know.
Is this top secret information?
No.
Not
Google.
just hold it
It's
to me.
Googleable. I Googled it before the show, but I'm going to let, because of the chance meeting that our leader had tonight, I'm going to let him get to that, and I'm not going to steal his thunder. That's for damn sure. But anyway, yeah, back to the racing. Let's wrap up this track.
That's all I got for.
I got one thing to add. You know, I know I'm going to use every cliche in the book. Department of Redundancy Department. I'm going to beat a dead horse. I'm going to say this time and time again, but kudos to this next gen car, because I believe the way this car is set up to run, it is letting these guys go on a track like this. It's considered a one-groove track on concrete. Tire wear was not really a major factor in this race. I mean, it actually proved that at the end, because basically Kurt and Chase both ran away from the field. Both of them had old tires on, but this damn car, and you know the thing is, we're in the infancy with this car. It's like this car is not even really stretched its legs yet. I mean, they haven't had it for a year. They're going to go back next year and start figuring things out. They have notes, but kudos to this race car. What a great move by NASCAR to put this car together and get it on the track. And I think it's actually on the track a year early, isn't it? Didn't they get it on
a year late? It's a
year late.
Year late? Okay. All right.
Well, you know,
that's due to the pandemic and shipping stuff. So,
but this car. Go ahead, Joe.
No, I was just going to say, you did hear. I heard a little snippet from Richard Petty talking about the next gen car the other day, and he said something I thought was kind of interesting. Is NASCAR is no longer stock car racing; it's race car racing. So, and he was alluding to the next gen car and the ability of this car now. So, you know, I think that really puts it in perspective that for so long NASCAR was trying to keep with the idea of a stock car and, you know, right off the assembly line, let's upgrade it until we can, you know, make it as aerodynamic as possible and as safe as possible. And that has just been scratched. And now we have the next gen car, which is a legitimate built from the ground up race car. So,
yeah, Joe, and I don't know if you're alluding to this, but on whatever Fox's show is, they do week daily, their NASCAR Now show or whatever they call it at 3:00. With the guys still do a show, a daily show. They did a little vignette, a little segment, about 15, 20 minutes long, on the history of the NASCAR. And that's one of the last comments that Petty said was, for the first time, I'm not going to try and imitate his voice, but for the first time, we're no longer driving a stock car. These are race cars. You know, and he said that. He said this is not, no parts come from a dealership or anything like that anymore, where you could go to the dealership and buy a fender and weld it on and you know, modify it and weld it on. He said, with the next gen car, it's all gone with that. But look what it's done for the sport. I mean, it's made it highly competitive, and you're getting 5 wide on a concrete track that's supposed to be a one-groove track. And they're not killing each other. They're not crashing them. They're racing them. I mean, I kept thinking, oh, God, we're going to have 20 yellows in the last 5 laps. So these guys all want to finish second behind Elliott. And no, they ran them. So
yeah, it was another great test and another great show for the next gen car. I just want to give a little bit of praise, if it may be the right word, or maybe a little bit of an admonishment from what we said about Goodyear a long time ago about the tires going down. And maybe NASCAR teams have listened, because there has not been nearly as many blown tires. So hopefully that situation is ironed out. Maybe it was teams not using the right camber or the right tire pressure, because we have also seen that completely change. And it's easy to dog something when it's going terrible. But at the same time, we also want to say, hey, they got to figure it out somehow. Can't say that for the one lug nut, though.
And they'll figure that out eventually. That just takes time to get used to that. It's funny because I was watching the qualifying today for the Xfinity race, and I saw a car. It looks out of place to me. It had 5 lugs on it. I'm looking at the Xfinity car. I'm like,
especially,
what the hell is that? Wait, there's 5 lugs on this car. How is anybody going to figure out how to do that anymore?
Well, we have a little bit of news, and I try to keep it a little bit slim because this will be full of other stuff in this show. But the 3 things I wanted to get to, and I think the last one probably is one more of a discussion, maybe not the second one, but Ricky Stenhouse did get extended, so he will be in the 47 car for the next few years to come. A big announcement was made. Martin Truex Jr., to the surprise of a lot of people, decided that he is going to commit to the 2023 season for JGR next year, so he will be back in the number 19 car. And then I saw this bit of news, and I think maybe we can allude on this if you don't want to touch the other things anymore. But Dale Earnhardt Jr. says he wants to bring JR Racing up to the Cup Series. That is a goal for him. And I'll just kind of get this started on my side, and then, Steve, I'll go to you. I think this is a great move. I think the better this sport can be with owners that have had success, not to get on Rick Ware Racing or whatever, Colleague Racing, a little bit back, but we want this sport top to bottom to be with the best interest of the people owning it and have driven it. And Junior Motorsports has dominated in the Xfinity Series. And if they can use the same things that they're using to bring their drivers up, it's only best for the product, especially with the car that we have now. And I think that really has something to do with it, is seeing Trackhouse Racing compete with this next-gen car. Seeing Michael McDowell again compete with this next-gen car, I think JR Motorsports looks at this as a situation to go, guys, we could literally be a mid-level team day one, bringing the resources that we have, bringing the drivers that we have, and I think that would be great for the sport. No offense to Joe, your brother-in-law, JJ Yaley, or Cody Ware, or,
JJ's
Fast
my boy.
Pasta. I know it's hard to hear, but the more competition that you have from top to bottom only makes this sport that much better. So I am all for JR Motorsports moving up to NASCAR. The only thing that kind of would bother me a little bit is that it'd just be another Chevy team, and it seems like it's pretty top heavy when it comes to Chevy manufacturers. But again, that is about the only negative that I can say to it. Steve, what do you have?
Well, a couple of things here. First off, on your first part was the Stenhouse. You said they just re-signed Stenhouse.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
Ricky.
Okay. My question to you is, and Joe, please, I try not to tax you because I know you're not feeling well, but how long do you stay with it? Ricky Stenhouse is not a winner in the Cup Series. I mean, he may have won 1 or 2 races sometime during his career, but the guy's a middle of the pack driver most of the time.
I'll take this.
Okay, then you take it then. But I say, how? And then you say you want to re-sign Truex. I mean, is it time to cut Truex loose and bring in, Ty Gibbs or something like that and start developing? I mean, how long, Joe, do you stay with these guys and keep and you not give a JJ Yaley a chance? Who JJ Yaley's out there for one reason only right now, because he's willing to go drive shit equipment. You know, park and rides, they used to call them. Now they don't allow you to do that anymore. But I might like to see J.J. Yaley get in Stenhouse's car and see what he can do with it. So my question, Joe, I'll come to you first. How long do you stick with these guys?
Well, I think when you're looking at like a Stenhouse, look at the Xfinity series. Who do you bring up in his place right now that's going to be able to come in, week out, and finish it in the top 20? That's not that a driver that's not already committed to another team. So I think when you're talking about a driver like Stenhouse, I think it's kind of like quarterbacks in the NFL. There's a lot of mediocre quarterbacks that have a starting job in the NFL. There's a lot of mediocre backups, and that's because what's the better alternative? Do you just put a brand new driver that's not proven? At least with him, you know what you're going to get. You're going to get 20 wrecks a season and maybe 3 or 4 top 10 finishes, and every once in a while he might compete for a win. So, and I think at the end of the day, when you compare a driver like Stenhouse to a Bubba Wallace, I take a Stenhouse over a Bubba Wallace any day of the week. So, I think he's a veteran driver that you know what you're going to get. There's not going to be any surprises with him. He does go out and try to win races, but you're right. He's not a championship driver. He's never going to be a championship driver, but he's an average Cup driver that's going to go out week in and week out and do his job to the best of his ability. And when you look down the ranks of the Truck Series and the Xfinity Series, I don't know who you pull up and get that quality of a driver that's not already committed to another team or another spot in the near future.
All right, I'll give you that, Joe. And Ryan, chime in. Let me just
I want to echo off.
Let me just make one comment back to that. I was watching qualifying today with the NBC boys on USA, and they talked about half the names that are racing in Elkhart Lake are not normal names on the Xfinity Series. So the Xfinity Series is a developmental league. That's what it was designed to be. It's set up that way. It's not set up for somebody to have a career in Xfinity. And tell me somebody's great in Xfinity, that doesn't mean they can move up and be great in Cup. How many times have we seen that happen? Where somebody has jumped in and proved their worth in Cup or in Xfinity, and then gone up to Cup and puked on themselves. And frankly, I'm gonna go against the grain here on this. I think Bubba Wallace has potential to be a good driver, a winning driver. I just think nobody's trained that man right to drive those cars. And I kind of liken him to Danica Patrick a little bit, although I think he's got more talent than Patrick did. I think if somebody took him and put him, Kyle Busch took him and put him under his wing and taught him how to drive, how to drive in the Cup Series, I think you'd see a lot more success out of Bubba Wallace, where I think basically Stenhouse is as good as he's going to get. But like I said, the Elkhart race for Xfinity is chock full of names of people that are not regulars on the circuit whatsoever.
Right. Yeah, the only thing that I would say to go with the argument with Joe is, and you guys have to keep this in mind, this is a business, and Ricky Stenhouse has a great relationship with Kroger, with Sonny D, with all these different things. Exactly right. And he's going to continue to use that relationship to put himself in a ride like that. Because remember, the guy on my shirt still does not have a sponsor. Okay. And I talked to him about that. And at the end of the day, if a guy has a chance to put you in victory lane and can bring money to you consistently every single year, a team like Petty GMS is going to use that. The last thing Petty GMS needs to worry about is a guy that's not able to market their brand, because they themselves haven't made changes to be a championship winning team. They don't put the resources into be a championship winning team. They haven't ever since I've been alive. I mean, they've had John Andretti behind the machine, Steve Park, now Eric Almirola. They've never used that spot to be a championship winning ride. So I think Ricky Stenhouse does exactly, Joe, what you said. He brings in a good sponsorship and he gives you a chance to win a few races a year. Do we pile on Ricky Stenhouse a little too much? Yeah, he doesn't wreck as much as we say he does. He has that reputation for a reason, because he is Ricky Stenhouse he's gotten mature. He's not nearly as bad as he used to be. But I will say this, and God forbid I'm talking good about Ricky Stenhouse. He puts his ass on every single car. I mean, he drives hard. That's why he wrecks. It's not because, he's just willing to bump a little bit more. He's willing to block a little bit more. It's because he's trying to get the best out of that machine, and he's never drove anything that's worth more than a mid-tier, going back to Roush Racing when Roush was already done. And out of the news, I didn't think we'd be talking about Ricky Stenhouse the most. But so the other driver that you mentioned, Steve,
I think Ricky Stenhouse is a poster child for a lot of Ricky Stenhouses in the Cup Series. There are a lot of guys that can bring a paycheck week to week. I mean, crap, how many times have I seen State House water heaters on a car? Where the hell is State House water heaters?
I don't know.
We have Westinghouse water heaters. So
but we got a lot more. We got a lot more to go through.
Yeah, Kyle Busch is definitely the norm. The lone wolf there, because that man, he's going to have a sponsor, and he's going to have a damn good one by the time he turns the car on for Daytona next year. There's no doubt about that. He's the most marketable, one of the 2 or 3 most marketable drivers in the Cup Series still to this day. And I think that's going to be no problem. So that's just my final thoughts on that. Back to slide one comment on the Dale Earnhardt thing. Again, I go back to kind of the same argument I've just used here. Hell of a lot of difference between racing in Xfinity and racing in Cup. Okay? And where is he going to get his charters from? I mean, charters, there's 36 of them. They're all owned by now. So he's got to get charters if he wants to run full time in the Cup Series. And right now,
it just depends on how much money he wants to do. He could be his own thing.
Well, I've heard charters are going for mega jack. I don't think he wants to pour that kind of money out of his pocket into buying 2, 3, 4 charters. And I would guess he would start with 2, but it remains to be seen. And he's basically just going to be an offshoot of the Hendrick team anyway. So, I mean, he's going to run all the Hendrick equipment.
Joe, you got any quick hits on the news on the other 2 pieces of information?
Yeah, I think Junior Motorsports. Did they give a time frame on when they want to do this? That's one.
No, he kind of just brought it up out of nowhere. A lot of people were speculating that he would like to move to the Cup Series, but on Dale Jr. Download, he just kind of brought it up out of nowhere. So
yeah, so I mean, I think that is a good move and probably a good eventual move for him. I will say this, Steve, when you talk about charters, when you're talking about an Earnhardt, I think NASCAR and the Franz family might make something happen for an Earnhardt to get a couple charters. So
that's horseshit if they do that.
I think that at the end of the day, I think it's great. I think keeping an Earnhardt in the business of owning a race team and on the track is nothing but a good deal for fans. And to answer your question, Steve, State Water Heaters was founded in 1946 in Nashville, Tennessee by Herbert Lindahl.
Okay. Thank you for that piece of information.
Yeah. They got 1,000 more people that know about him now than they ever did before.
I am definitely a fan, and I listen to his podcast and Dale's, the Lee's, but it's going to make me puke when he gets into the Hall of Fame because he does not have Hall of Fame numbers.
The only thing that I would say, I
think having a championship ought to be a prerequisite to get in.
Dale Jr. continues to move this sport with the media that he now provides, both his podcast, the fact that he's bringing back old speedways. Dale Jr. and I would never have been a Dale Jr. fan, and
I like the guy,
not
but
the person, but the driver. But he has used everything about his last name to continue the sport of NASCAR in a positive way. So if you can't win on the racetrack, at least do what you can with your popularity to move it forward, and he has done that most certainly. So we're going to move on to the next topic, and this doesn't have a long topic. Steve, I think I geared this more towards you. So Bubba Wallace was caught on his radio after a loose wheel, then he stopped, then he got rear-ended, and his crew chief, said, "Hey, sorry about that." And I'm going to quote Bubba Wallace, so if you have kids, earmuffs. He said, "You motherfuckers, don't fucking talk to me the rest of the fucking race." Now, that's catching some heat from the media based on what he said. I'm going to ask you, is it fair or foul? And the only thing that I'm going to say to this is NASCAR presents the opportunity for you to listen to drivers more than any other sport. You cannot listen to the NFL huddles. You more than likely cannot listen to anything from an NBA or college team huddle live. You have that opportunity with the access to NASCAR more than anywhere else, where you hear everything that's happening right there. So that's the only thing I'm going to say. Steve, is it fair or foul?
Oh, I think if NASCAR wants to broadcast it, they better expect it to be fair. I mean, you're talking about guys that are in the heat of the moment doing their work at 150 to 200 miles an hour, 3 inches apart from other idiot drivers, just like they are. And
did he take it too far?
I think this guy, yeah, in that case, he probably did take it too far. You don't want to cut off communications. But to me, seems to me, I know a guy who started off driving for, Hendrick first, and then went to Penske, and then milled around somewhere else. Finally ended up in Gibbs, and he was the biggest fucking hothead in the sport too at one point in time. Got fined more times from bitching at the media and bitching at everybody. And now he's a pretty good representative of the sport and pretty good guy. He's calmed down. And like I said, I think that goes back to if somebody grabbed Bubba by his butt and said, "Hey, this is not how not how you win friends and influence people here," and take him and do that, and you might see a little different Bubba. The other thing and I'll just leave it at this, and Joe, you can kick in. I did not know this, but I know it now, is that 2311 does not have their own pit crews. They contract out from Gibbs.
JGR.
Yep. So they're basically getting the 4th and 5th or 5th and 6th pit crews from JGR, because JGR isn't going to give them the top 4. Those are going to his team.
Absolutely not.
And no, he's not. So they're getting qualified, trained, talented drivers, but they're not the best that Gibbs has to offer, or the best that they might be developing on their own. But they do not have their own pit crews. They contract those right off of JGR's training and development program, and they are bona fide JGR crew teams that go over there and work the 23 and the 45 car. So
Joe, before you talk,
I think it was fair. I think it was fair. The language thing is always an issue, but if you're going to put athletes on live radio like that, mic their helmet, go in on their private conversations, and listen to them talk in the heat of a battle. Having done that at the highest level in college sports you can do, you better be willing. I mean, if there was anybody heard the shit that was said in the huddle and locker rooms, even with Bob Knight, I mean, some of it's leaked out from time to time, but there's no real reason to be doing it other than it is very sensationalistic, and we all like it. I had no problem with it.
Joe, before you get started, this is actually documented as the 7th loose tire by Bubba Wallace pit crew. That being said, is it fair or foul for what Bubba Wallace said?
So here's my thought. Bubba Wallace, in his attitude, he perpetually portrays an attitude that he's the only one that matters on his team. And as you know, even though a driver is driving that car around the track, that is a team effort. You have a crew chief, you have a pit crew, you have people behind the scenes doing everything they can to get you out front. And we've seen how pit crews can either cause somebody to lose a race, win a race, or keep them in a race. It's a team effort at the end of the day. Yeah, you have a driver, but you also have a quarterback on a football field. And anytime that I would ever hear a quarterback bitching about his line because he can't perform, that's the same deal here. He's blaming his weaknesses and his poor season on everybody else, and he's doing it over the radio, and now he's frustrated. I don't like the guy's attitude. I never have. And this kind of shows what kind of competitor he is. And there's a quote, and for the life of me, it's escaping me right now who said this, but it's a quote that I tell teams that I coach, and is you never learn anything about a person by the way they win. You can learn everything you need to know about a person by the way they lose. And you just learned everything you need to know about Bubba Wallace. He's a one-way son of a bitch that thinks everything's about him. So foul.
The only thing that I will say is my favorite driver is Kyle. If you have the privilege, which you should, by him talk, this is about every race that you can hear from Kyle Busch. The only difference is Kyle Busch has already proven himself. He's a 2-time NASCAR champion, won over 100 times in this sport. So he gets the latitude to pretty much say what he wants because nobody ever questions is he a good driver or not. The issue that we have, and what we've talked on this show multiple times, is we don't know if Bubba Wallace is even an adequate driver, you know? And I think that is the problem that we have when it comes to Bubba Wallace. You know, this, honestly, to me, I could care less. It is what it is. You know, I was more interested to what Booty Barker to say as crew chief. He said, I'm still going to be here. We're not going to give up on you. We have a really good car. Go out and win. Now, to Joe's point, after having the fastest practice and then the fastest top 10 average in practice, so he was fastest in practice on the short run and on a longer run, he blew qualifying. He got into turn 1, his ass in and he absolutely blew qualifying. That's why he started 32nd. Did Booty Barker come on the radio and goes, you motherfucker, you just blew our qualifying because you had the fastest car that we just gave you? No. That's not what he did. So at the same time, it's hard to give Bubba Wallace because we, as a whole, at least for non-Bubba Wallace fans, throw out all the other garbage that you want to. This is pure NASCAR. We don't view him as an elite driver. And when he goes back to yelling and screaming at his crew, it just kind of rings tone deaf, especially the incident, you know, the one that gets me the most is you can clearly tell Alex Bowman is dehydrated. He's getting an IV. He just got out of his car. Bubba Wallace gets out of the car and throws Gatorade right in his face after disappointed from his finish. You don't see that out of other drivers. You know, that's not a mano thing. That to me is worse than a guy swinging with his helmet on, is to hit a guy who's clearly, you know, impaired. So, Joe, I saw you had wanted to make.
Yeah, I'll just say this, and you brought up Kyle Busch, and I want to bring this up from a couple weeks ago when Kyle Busch was driving for himself in the Xfinity or Truck Series or Kyle Busch Motorsports. I forget which race it was, but his pit crew did something bad. He got on the radio, and he had some bad words for him. But I remember something specific he said, and I'm going to go back and find this after the show because it's piqued my interest. But I remember him saying, we don't even deserve to be in this race. And, you know, and he was directing that at a bad pit stop. But he said, we don't even deserve to be in this race. He didn't say, you motherfuckers, you pieces of shit. He said, we. He put himself part of the team. So there is something that really that separates Bubba Wallace and Kyle Busch when it comes, monkeypox. When it comes to that, is Kyle Busch is still part of his race team, and it shows, and he's a competitor. Bubba Wallace is a narcissistic idiot who thinks everything's about him. So I'm done ranting on.
To be fair, this is my favorite driver. Kyle Busch is the also person that went on a tangent why his race absolutely sucked. He said his pit crew sucked. Damn, the spotter wasn't worth a damn. And they said, well, how'd you get a time? And he said, because I'm Kyle fucking Busch. Same driver as well. So, but he is Kyle.
But that's sarcasm. And if you watch Kyle Busch long enough, you know that.
It is his persona. Steve, you got anything else to add to this?
Yeah. No, I mean, we could argue this point until we're blue in the face. I think there's definitely a higher level than the average of immaturity in Bubba Wallace right now. Time will tell whether he can pull that out or that he gets that wiped out. of his system a little bit. Who knows? There's a lot of
Magic
drivers that started
degrees.
off this. A lot of drivers that started off their careers with a level of immaturity, and Mel, the whole Busch family would fall into that category. But they've all turned out to be pretty stoic, veteran statesmen of the sport and representing the sport in a very high fashion. So,
Yeah.
well, time will tell. I'm saying I agree. Hard to make excuses for him because he's not winning. He's blowing chances as much as anybody. But I don't have a problem with, if NBC or Fox wants to put that shit on the air, then that's your problem. You're going to get in trouble with the FCC, not Bubba Wallace.
Yeah, they put it on
So,
radioactive, and obviously they bleep it out. And that's the part that, to me, I hate about media, is they're going to say, oh, my God, listen how terrible this is, and then show it for millions of people on a show when the race was 3 days ago. It's just like the NFL is, we don't want hard hits, and every commercial you have is some guy getting knocked off. It's either you promote it or you don't. You can't have it both ways. And I agree with you, Steve. I don't care that he says that, that we have that. I want to have that access. I don't want to lose the access in this, because when you go to the track, that's what makes it so awesome. You can't go to an NFL game and be like, oh man, they're getting ready to run a run play. You don't, and that's why we had the controversy, that we're going to talk about here in a little bit with Kyle Busch on Tennessee Titans or M&Ms. So, I have no problem with it. I just think it rings tone deaf on the people that question the talent of Bubba for him to, essentially throw his team under the bus in the worst possible way.
Yeah, fair enough.
So now,
before we move on, are you done with that? Are we done with this topic?
Yeah, go ahead.
Do we need? I don't have the script in front of me, but Joe, do we need to be plugging our sponsor?
Yeah, we sure do. Hey, if you're enjoying our show, I want to remind you that The Grueling Truth is powered by betting.net. Betting.net is your best bet for finding an online casino or sports book that's right for you. How was that, Steve?
That's great. Joe, I just say when you host, we never miss opportunities to plug our sponsor.
Yeah.
Somebody's too wrapped around the axle about Kyle Busch.
You get what you pay for. So moving on to Kyle Busch.
I got to.
I want to. I actually.
Go ahead.
No, I'm waiting to hear. I know you got to talk with Kyle Busch this week, and I'm actually anxiously waiting to hear about this. So I think we're finally going to get to hear about it.
Yeah, that's actually what I was going to. He was in Rushville this weekend, and if you are not familiar with that, that's because you don't live in Indiana. So that's. But he was at a local dirt track, a 1/8 of a mile dirt track, the Rush County Fairgrounds. I got to go to get a pit pass, and it was just me and Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch was working on his car and also working on his son's car. I waited patiently to talk to him. I said, hi, Mr. Busch, how you doing? He was working on his car, and he said, I'm doing good. Went back into his hauler, came back out, saw that, and this is a tip for people who want to have conversations with professional people. I didn't bother him. I just said, how you doing? He came back, saw that I was still there. And then we just had a conversation for around 10 minutes. And I asked a lot of questions to Kyle Busch. And the thing that surprised me was how authentic he was. He was obviously very nice. And he answered everything I had to say. And I think, we can kind of go into this a little bit. But I asked him, I said, first off, what's the difference between M&Ms and Tennessee Titans? And does any of those mean stay out? And the answer is no. M&M's means he wanted tire pressure adjustment. Tennessee Titans means he wants 2 tires. So I said, oh. And he goes, yeah, you're right. We screwed up. We should have stayed out. Well, I think the world knows that now. That's why I did not go on a Ben Bayshore rant that I would have went on if we did this early Monday. This race ended at midnight. So it's, again, a thing that, unfortunately, with the coverage of NASCAR, we don't get to ask those questions. We're just thrown in the dark, and you can try to figure it out yourself. The next question I asked him, I said, will we get any information you signing a new deal with JGR or sponsorship? And he said, no time soon. And his demeanor changed. And that was very telling to me. I mean, he was very short. He goes, nope, no time soon. And the thing, if you talk to Kyle Busch, is he just to me, he was telling me like it was. We talked a little bit more about the season, about kind of giving a couple wins away that we thought were possibly there. Every time we have a chance to make the right move, we've made the wrong move. And then lastly, we talked a little bit about his movie that came out Wednesday, and I said, how's it doing? Is it going to be on Prime for anybody that's interested? And he said, well, this is kind of a test. And I said, well, if Austin Dillon can have a TV show, then you can have a Netflix movie. I will not repeat what he said after that. That'll be between
me and Austin Dillon's TV show is spectacular.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about that on this show, Steve.
Oh God, come on! I got to get that thing. I've seen both episodes.
So, but for what I want to kind of put out there is, we all have this persona of what Kyle Busch is, and some of that's media made, some of it's not. I think at first it wasn't. I think it was purely, he has always alluded to. He goes, my first ever race, I got booed because people hated my brother. They've never raced before, had no idea who I was, and I got booed. And I think he's turned that from kind of what you said earlier, Steve, as what the hell's going on, because he had all this pressure, to this is who I am. And who you are in front of the media and who you are as a person, I think, is totally different. Kyle Busch was extremely nice. He came up and talked to me a little bit later. I got to talk to Samantha. We celebrated when Brexton Busch ended up winning. But more importantly, what I was a dad standing on somebody else's truck bed, videotaping off his own phone, his son racing, his mom pacing up and down, turn 3 and turn 4 as in, and the richest guy in NASCAR working on his own vehicles and his son's own vehicles the entire time. NASCAR is so much different than all these other sports, because at the end of the day, it's such a work from the bottom to get to the top type of approach. And Kyle Busch couldn't have been any nicer. He had family, went up to talk to him. His kids played football with Brexton the entire time. It's a surreal thing for me. I don't lose my ability to talk to people, but he's the only driver that I've ever rooted for actually bring me a championship as a fan. And that was awesome. And he couldn't have been nicer. We talked about Brexton's performance after his first heat. And it's just something I'll never forget. And what the media would have you view as Kyle Busch was not the same one that I talked to on Tuesday night or Wednesday night. Do you guys have any questions?
Glad to hear it. I mean, no, yeah. I got a feeling a lot of these guys are that way. Like I said, we catch them minutes after a race when they're just still adrenaline's pumping through their body. And here you got to, see him in jeans and a T-shirt and a grease monkey that he was being, working on his own kid's car. And I think that you saw the human side of Kyle Busch, and you're very lucky to get to do that. Not many people get that kind of access to him.
The thing that I was happy with, Steve, and maybe this is coming from a dad of 3, is I got to see a dad. I got to see a guy pass for the win on the last lap, and someone genuinely excited to his son race, and part of the entire. So, I think that's what I took away the most. I did meet another fan, and he said he worked for the EMR safety crew at Indianapolis. And I said, how'd you get to be a Kyle Busch fan? He said, when I worked on the EMR safety crew, Kyle Busch was the only one that knew me by name and the only one that came up and talked to me every single time I was at Indianapolis. And he said, after that, I was a Kyle Busch fan for life. He goes, I didn't even care for NASCAR. I was just there as a safety person. He goes, Kyle Busch got me as a NASCAR fan. And he goes, as soon as Nashville, he goes, I drove 3 hours to come see him. And his sons were the ones actually playing football with Brexton, and Kyle played with them for a little bit that night too. So, that's what I have to share, and that's not being biased. That's being 100% the conversations we had and, what I seen with my own eyeballs for somebody obviously pointed as the worst possible human being to ever step foot in NASCAR.
No,
Joe, you have anything?
No, I enjoy listening to that story. That's good stuff.
Great story. Great stuff. Makes it fun to
Yeah,
do this show. Another reason that's why it's fun to do this show. You get some information like that.
And it's funny because, I mean, you've obviously played with a ton of professionals. I mean, you know, especially your connections with IU and, you know, the coaching staff and the former players there. But as somebody that's not been able to do that, just an everyday fan, you kind of hope that the person you're rooting for reaffirms themselves as a person, that it's okay to root for them. And a lot of times you'll be really disappointed. And if anything, it just solidified the fact that I'm a Kyle Busch fan for life, and I'll be a Brexton Busch fan for life. So,
yeah.
So I will get off my high horse because
the most important question of the night is, what the hell does M&M stand for?
I told you it's a tire pressure adjustment.
Oh no, I thought you meant it was Mars and Mari.
No, M&M. He said he needed some M&Ms.
They're the two guys that founded the company, Mars Candy Bars, which we know them as now.
And now they're leaving.
I thought that's where you were going.
No, that he said he needed M&Ms, and Ben Bayshore said, "I want to give you Tennessee Titans."
I got this page and a half here of the Mars.
You know what Kyle Busch. You know what he should have said. You motherfuckers don't talk to me for the rest of the race. I'm staying out.
That was probably not on radioactive, but at the same time, Kyle Busch was the one that said he wanted a tire pressure. They wanted to stay out. So, like I said, if we did this show on Sunday, I would have beat the living dog shit verbally out of Ben about how terrible he was. But now getting to talk to Kyle Busch, they both were in agreement. Just one wanted a tire pressure adjustment. So, well, we're going to move on from that. Again, that was just a cool experience I had. Steve got to talk about Chase Elliott. I, thank God, had something to bring me down from the news that I had after Sunday to meet Kyle Busch. So let's go ahead and move on to the longest racetrack on the current schedule, and that is Road America. Joe, do you have anything to be attuned to for the Road America course this week?
Only the third race there since 1952. They brought it back last year. I think this is the longest course of the season, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, it's over 4 miles.
Yeah, so I think Chase Elliott won last year. I think he'll probably be up there this year. But like every time we roll around to a road course, like the last road course with Daniel Suarez. It's a crapshoot, man. You never know who's going to win these road courses, just like super speedways. You don't have to have the best car or the best team to win a road course. So, I think
I think the cars leveled brought the Suarez's and the Chastains into this thing.
Well, but you don't have to have the best performing car week in, week out. You don't have to be a top tier race team to compete on a road course. So, I think. You put your faith in the drivers that typically do well and the veterans on road courses that have proven themselves, but be on the lookout for a Chase Briscoe or a Daniel Suarez or somebody like that to be running up front at the end of the race too. So it's really all I have.
Joe, I think you got a great mix coming up here to Elkhart Lake. Now, first I want to say this. I was crushed when they took away the Firecracker 400. I thought mid-season another run at Daytona. I love that so much. It was always a great weekend. When Little E came back and won the Firecracker 400 when his dad passed away that February, and came back that track, and Elliott won that time, or an Earnhardt, I'm sorry, and that was great. But I thought, oh God, Elkhart Lake. Then I look at the campers that are there, the people that are enjoying the weekend. I mean, it's a literally 4th of July destination now for a lot of people that aren't necessarily dyed-in-the-wool, diehard NASCAR fans. I mean, there's like they said, a lot of the drivers they interviewed today in the Xfinity qualifying were saying, you come up here and you realize real quick this is a party that secondarily has a race wrapped around it or wrapped into it.
Yeah, who doesn't want to spend the weekend in Sheboygan?
Well, but it's beautiful country up there.
Some poutine and cheese curds, eh?
It's got to be better than being in the Valley in Los Angeles or VV, Indiana. So, little bit more God's country, but
Representing the
yeah,
double V.
you're going to throw in this weekend this mix of talented drivers up front. Now you got this thing of desperate drivers that are coming up too. You got guys that are really put themselves in position. They've got to win. And so it's going to make for an interesting race, but let's get everybody going here and talking about Elkhart and what we think is going to happen here.
Can you hear me, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
you threw up the
Thank
double
God.
V. You threw up the double V and shut everything down.
Yeah, the rival
Oh,
gang
the
I thought
VV.
came after me.
Yeah, you're right.
Sorry about that. I have no problem
Steve's
with VV
over there.
Indiana.
Steve's over there talking crap about VV Indiana. We're shutting the show down.
I didn't talk crap. I
Exactly.
said as much crap about where I live.
I thought the
Malibu?
Amish gang was coming after me. So
Yeah.
the only thing that I'm actually looking forward to is if this is a great show because Road America has not been extended till next year. So they're talking about possibly moving back to Chicagoland, either the Speedway, please God, or Street Circuit.
Please God.
Much. But so we will see what kind of show we get. And the thing I'm obviously paying attention to, the last road course race, JGR was absolutely god-awful. Is that going to be a trend, or do they find a way to dial these cars in, moving forward? Well, I've delayed this long enough. Joe, do you have our picks from a few days
I do.
ago?
Yeah, so we'll get into our
Good day for
our
you guys.
picks from last week. So, Ryan, I'll start with you. You picked Larson, Chastain, Byron, Kyle Busch, and Christopher Bell. You got 2 points for Larson, 2 points for Chastain, 1 point for Bell, for a weekly total of 5, which brings your
which should be
total
good
to 46.
Should be good. But then Chris Buescher lost a tire, and I lost like 7 points after that.
Yeah.
Due to some shitty pit strategy.
Yeah. I mean, you should have probably had possibly 5 or at least 2 more points onto that. So your season total is now 46. I'll go second. I picked Larson, Kyle Busch, Chastain, Bowman, and Elliott. I got 5 points for Elliott, 2 points for Larson, 2 points for Chastain, which gave me 9 points for the week, which gives me a season total of 60 points. Steve, you had Elliott, Larson, Chastain, Truex, and Logano. You got 5 points for Elliott for the win, 2 points for Larson for a top 5, 2 points for Chastain for a top 5, and 1 point for Logano for a top 10, which gave you a weekly total of 10 points and the season record thus far for points during a single week. Congratulations. Yay. And that brings your season total to 59 points, 1 behind me. So that's where we stand currently.
And Logano wasn't worth a shit the entire race.
No, he
his
wasn't.
pit strategy just snuck in.
Thank you, JGR Racing. Thank you, JGR, for making a bad call, a company bad call.
So
that got me my extra point.
As we do weekly, Steve, since you won the week, you get your choice to go first or last with your picks this week.
Well, I mean, I don't think I'm going to change my picks here. I'll go first this time since I'm leading. Okay. I definitely, looking right down the board, LA's defending champion. I think he has a legitimate shot at being the first back-to-back winner this year in the Cup Series. But everything's possible. I'm going to take Larson because he's definitely dangerous. Ross Chastain is nobody to be trifled with on the road courses. And I'm definitely going to take Kyle Busch because I think Busch is poised and ready to pull one of these out and will be in the mix for sure. And my fifth driver, I'm going to give him one more shot before I give up on him for the rest of the season. Because I think if he doesn't pull off something miraculous here, I think he's pretty well done for the season. Of course, I say that and he'll go on a tear, but I'm going to go with Martin Truex to be in the hunt most of this race. There's some desperation there to get a win. And I'm kind of wanting him to win because I like the fact that where we've got maybe one spot left, And we're hoping to God somebody who has not won doesn't take that 16th spot. And, and then the points guys are out completely. So I just think the mix is there. But so I'm going with Elliott, Larson, Chastain, Truex, and Kyle Busch are my 5.
Good pick,
What
Steve.
say you?
Well, Steve, for the nature of competition between us, I actually picked the exact same drivers as you, but I'm going to change one because if we do that every week,
we're not. There's 19 races left. We're not going to do it for 19 races.
So
let it go.
My picks this week are going to be Elliott, Larson, Kyle Busch, Ross Chastain, and I'm going to go with Kurt Busch instead of Truex Jr. this week.
I had Kurt Busch scratched right there with Truex. There was a coin toss between those two.
Well, in
Ryan?
typical last place fashion, I have 2 drivers that you guys have and then 3 others. And I'm hoping maybe Joe will have a provision like he did.
Just tell me you don't have Stenhouse.
No.
I'll tell you what.
Stenhouse.
I'll tell you what. You take Stenhouse, we'll give you 10 points for a top 5.
Absolutely not. Screw you guys. I have Chase Elliott, Ross Chastain, and then I'm going back in, baby, to my 2-point getters, Chase Briscoe and Austin Cindric, and then my amigo and Daniel Suarez.
Suarez is hot too right now on the road courses.
Chase Briscoe was really good here last year, so I'm hoping that he can try to do something.
Right, and I don't dislike those picks. That's exactly what I'm talking. Chase Briscoe.
If you don't dislike him, then don't say nothing else. Just let it lay.
Yeah, it just drives home the point that I think those drivers have just as good a chance of finishing in the top 5, top 10 as any of the veteran drivers. So I think they're all good picks this week. Steve, I hope Kurt Busch wins the race, and Elliott, Larson, Kyle Busch all finish in the top 5.
There you go.
I hope Kyle Busch wins, but he made me sad last week, so I didn't pick him. Well, guys, that's going to do it for another show. Do you have anything else to say before we wrap up?
I do. If you enjoyed our show, check us out on Facebook or YouTube. And then we also can be found at Twitch or any of the major podcast networks like iHeartRadio. I want to thank everybody for watching. I let everybody know that the Grueling Truth is powered by betting.net. Betting.net is your best bet for finding online casino or sportsbook that's right for you. That's all I have to say, Ryan. What do you have to say?
I'm going to ask Steve first because he might have even something better. But
I'm just going to say we're going into this in the last 9 races before we determine the 16 drivers. 9 races till playoffs. 3 of these are on road courses. 2 of them are on what's perceived as super speedways. Daytona, and now you can almost call Atlanta a super speedway. And so you've got 5, more than half the races now are on specialty tracks, or what I would say not specialty as much as they are crapshoot tracks, because the road courses are all crapshoots, and certainly we know that Daytona and possibly Atlanta in the second race this year is going to be a crapshoot race too. So it's getting down to nut cutting time for these guys now that are struggling to get the points in there and get it done. I think the racing is going to be exciting from here on out. This car is going to really prove its worth, and it's going to be a fun ride for the next 9 races.
Yeah, it should be a good show, and hopefully the guy wearing the number 18 after spending the entire week in the great state of Indiana comes away on top. Again, you can find us on Sundays as long as one of us doesn't have a curfew and another one of us doesn't get smallpox after the race. So hopefully we will be with you Sunday. Thank God this race starts at 3 o'clock, and they do have windshield wipers. So if it does rain, we still get to hopefully finish on time. But again, this has been the NASCAR show here on the Grueling Truth. I'm Kyle Busch's best friend. For Steve Risley and Joe Spilman, we'll see you guys on Sunday.
See you later.